Welcome back to another GRA podcast episode. We have a lot to get to today. We got 3 different topics, all spanning out to different sort of ideas and concepts here. But I'm really excited to be talking to you guys about the WNBA. never thought I'd say that ever. Civil War, the new Alex Garland movie, and then the Baltimore Orioles just went to one of their games against the Minnesota Twins last night on Monday. So I'm really excited to be doing that, talking about all those types of things. Let's start actually with Civil War because I have a little bit more concrete ideas for that. So my parents and I just went and saw Civil War this past weekend. Very divisive film from what I have heard before coming into the movie. Not necessarily divisive in the ways that you would thought or that people have thought or any way that you would think. It's divisive in literally just in its filmmaking, not necessarily in the themes or the ideas or the concepts that the movie's trying to give off. It's strictly a movie about a group of literally like rebels, pretty much the Western Alliance of Texas and California going against a fascist president, so to speak. You don't get a whole lot of information about the Civil War, like in-universe Civil War going on. You kind of just follow a couple photojournalists trying to get to their way to the White House, to Washington, D.C., to get that awesome interview or get that awesome photo or get that awesome clip from the whole war and things going on in the nature of this United States. So really interesting movie, actually. I thoroughly enjoyed myself watching it. I guess I can just move into the review instead of just talking about dancing around the bush here. I liked it. I thought it was okay. I don't think it was like the greatest movie of all time, and I don't think it was the worst movie of all time. I think this is kind of along the lines of people watching these sort of movies, especially Alex Garland movies. You know that he can do better. You know that he's actually talked about, different sci-fi films and different high-level themes and things of that nature before in a way better context and a way better execution, such as Ex Machina and Annihilation. But his last 2 movies, Men and Civil War, have kind of watered down the sort of idea of his high thoughts of culture and society and, technology and sci-fi sort of themes. And it's got to a point where people are just now talking about his filmmaking rather than the actual concepts and themes of the actual movies that he's putting out. With that said, honestly, I thought that Civil War was okay. Alex Garland is not my favorite director. I have seen Ex Machina and Annihilation only once each, so I don't have a whole lot of say on those types of movies. But the reason I'm talking about and also Men I haven't seen, but the reason I talk about his discography is a whole lot of the discourse going into this movie. I don't think it's going to break ground. I don't think it's going to go crazy in the box office. It's like its first weekend out. I don't think this is going to be as divisive as people thought it was going to be. I think people saw trailers in watching the news or watching sports or whatever. You saw a trailer or a commercial about the movie. It's like Civil War. Like no wonder it's coming out in an election year, and it's definitely going to be divisive. It's definitely going to put gas to a couple fires here. But really, it didn't do that. It didn't really do that. It definitely told an interesting sci-fi dystopian story about photojournalists making their way. This is essentially a road trip movie through mid-apocalyptic America in the middle of this serious civil war going on. I don't know. There's not a whole lot of setup I can say other than it was an interesting movie going into it. And now that I watched it, I don't think I'm changed. I don't think I'm moved. I don't think there's a whole lot going on in that story. However, what I will say is that the lens that the movie has put itself at, Chris Stuckman actually said this, it's the wisest decision that Alex Garland could have made while in the writer's room creating this movie. And honestly, I couldn't agree more. And I also it'd take the way of wisest as in least divisive, or if you said if you're followed a Republican through the Civil War, it would have been a whole lot different of a movie if you had a Democrat going through the Civil War or something along those lines. In fact, you have this movie now that are photojournalists, which is literally supposed to be neutral. They're supposed to just get the story and tell the story to its utmost truth through their photography and through their capturing of images and interviews. So simply, that's what the movie is about. That's the lens that the movie has put itself through. So there's no sort of left and right leanings. There's no sort of like, this is right, this is wrong, this is the side that's good, this is the side that's bad. Simply because the idea of, obviously, people should rise up against a fascist dictator. Maybe that's controversial. Maybe somebody shouldn't be a fascist dictator. But apparently it's a background of the Civil War. In the movie, that's never explained. It's never explained that the president that they're going after has done atrocities to the nation. That's never said anything. That's not said at all in the movie. So really, you're just following a group of photojournalists going through the Civil War that you as the audience member don't really know what's going on. You just know for a fact that you're with these group of people. And I thought, and this is like sort of my idea, and I know that we're already like a couple minutes into this, and I finally get into my idea about Civil War, is that I think that's the most interesting way to go and look at this movie, to think about it as in like, I don't want to be divisive, not just because of my filmmaking, but because of the themes and things of that nature and who we follow. Let's follow photojournalists and their up close and personal reactions and experiences with a sort of war-torn society and country. And I think that's super interesting. It not only allows the audience to be really close and really have a really good visual experience with people shooting guns at really close proximity and people being pinned down in a corner and shooting out, or people going against like the U.S. military, tanks blowing up, things happening. It's a very good, actually. It's all the action scenes are very well edited and very well like blocked and shot and acted. It was a very good movie in those sort of senses. But again, like I can't stress enough how interesting, because I think of I'm not a young filmmaker. I'm not a filmmaker at all. I just like to do video production. And if I were to make this story, I don't think I would have ever thought of doing the photojournalist side. I would have thought like, okay, if I'm going to make this movie about, a U.S. Civil War, I got to make it, got to make it count. Got to make it mean something. I got to choose a side. I got to make something happen. I got to tell people about a sort of thing. And I never would have thought about doing a photojournalist where the side is neutral and they don't have a side. They just want to simply capture the story. While that having its downfalls, where like I feel like coming out of the movie, I just thought I watched something really cool. The last 30 minutes of this movie are in fact very cool. They get in tight with like the combat participants. They get really close in contact with the people blowing up each other and cars lighting on fire and people throwing stuff and tanks shooting and missiles being shot at other people. Very interesting way to frame a story, especially in a war torn against society. But I don't think I would have ever thought about doing it in a photojournalist way, inherently making the story more interesting because you are now in the story, but now it's up to you to choose a side. However, the movie doesn't even give you the ability to choose a side, because it doesn't tell you which side you should be on, or even clarifies the different sides. And I think there's going to be a lot of articles, and I'll wrap up with this. I think there's going to be a lot of articles with this movie about how it's spineless. It doesn't take a side, and in fact, and that is the downfall, is that it doesn't take a side on these Republican or Democrat, left or right, fascist or anarchist, or anything like that. It doesn't take a side in any of that. It doesn't tell you what's wrong, what's right. And I think that's pretty interesting, because I don't think in a certain movie like this, a politically driven movie, which actually turned out to be not politically driven at all, I don't think that's necessarily a downside of it. I think just simply telling the story and then having the lens through photojournalists, is seeing their faces when things happen, having their reactions be muted when they see somebody burn alive, and a couple of them be focused only on the goal and only want to make sure that their thought and their idea and, like I said, their goal happen. I think that's super interesting in a lens, in a setting of literally people invading the White House and shooting the president, like and posing with the dead body like it's Pablo Escobar. It's just crazy and interesting to see what photojournalists even do and how close they get to the action and what the implications there are. How they aren't normally hit by bullets, but when they are, it's not necessarily like anybody's fault and things of that nature. But honestly, like I learned more about photojournalism than I did learning about U.S. politics in Civil War. So I don't think I can say that I really liked the movie because the first half of it was kind of slow, and just kind of hard to grasp onto characters you're not really you don't really feel a whole lot about for. But nonetheless, I think in the end that I really enjoyed seeing and understanding and being around the discourse of this movie, and then seeing it for myself and thinking, wow, that was a really cool lens of telling a Civil War story in a modern society in America. So, very, very interesting movie. Not the best movie of all time, but definitely worth a watch if I were to say so myself. The next thing I kind of want to pivot towards seeing the Baltimore Orioles. I'm an Orioles fan. I'm a Baltimore sports fan. I'm an Orioles fan. I'm a Ravens fan. And then for basketball, I'm Houston Rockets. Long story, but I went to a Baltimore Orioles game last night, and that was a lot of fun. I don't think I've been to many ballparks in America. Let's think. I've been to a Dodgers game. I've been to a Nationals game. I've been to an Orioles game, and I've also been to a Chicago Cubs game at Wrigley Field. I don't think I can rank those because I don't remember Nationals Park, but let's see if I can do it. Number one, I would probably say Wrigley Field. Maybe Wrigley Field before this past Baltimore Orioles game was the most recent baseball game I had been to, and I think Wrigley Field has this sense of obviously it's old timey. Obviously they use the numbers, the physical numbers on the scoreboard and things of that nature, and they switch them out, and they have a big cool marquee outside of Wrigley Field and things of that nature. But it almost holds the sport of baseball in such high reverence that when you walk into Wrigley Field, there is no mistaking it for a park or a football field or a just a normal stadium that you can just swap out something else for, or have a concert in there. No, it's strictly baseball. It's strictly Cubs. It's strictly Wrigley Field. And I remember the sounds. I remember like the smells. I remember just the old timiness, reverence towards the sport of baseball. And I really enjoy going to Wrigley Field. The next one, I'll probably say Dodger Stadium or whatever it's called. Dodger Stadium, I don't think on the inside was very interesting. I wasn't super interested in sports or even baseball, like really at the time. I just like basketball, and we were just out in LA, me and my family in California, and we thought go to a Dodgers game would be pretty cool, and we could go see the Braves play the Dodgers, and that's what my brother-in-law's team is. I was not really rooting for anybody. I just would like to be a part of California, and I think that's also something that different sports stadiums can deal with, or what's the word? Show towards, or relate themselves to. I think Wrigley Field does it in a perfect way. If you want to come and do a 7-inning stretch and have some Cracker Jack, then come on down. LA Dodgers is like, do you want to see stars? Do you want to see really cool mountains in the back? Do you want to see this big cool screen that shows everything in the back outfield? Do you want to be a part of like a big sports franchise with a really modern sort of ideas and gates and stores and scenery? Then come to a Dodgers game. So that's another like sort of idea that I got from a Dodgers game. I really enjoyed the scenery of that, seeing the mountains and different California things in the background outside the stadium, being like 30 minutes from LA, maybe 40. Just thinking like, man, LA is not just a glitz and glamour Hollywood town. It's also a sports town. It's also a sports city, which they have massive, star power in the Dodgers. And this was back in 2017, so obviously they didn't have Shohei Ohtani, they didn't have anybody crazy, but it was just interesting to be a part of like this California weather outside, brisk nature. I got myself a LA Dodgers hat, like the scenery of how the Dodgers allowed themselves to be portrayed in this like fancy modern way is something very attractive to me. So I like being at the Dodgers game. Third would probably be Camden Yards at Oriole Park, or Oriole Park at Camden Yards. It's in Baltimore, so it's kind of it's not the best city of all time. What I really enjoyed being there, and this might be just recency bias and just like picking and choosing what I'd like to talk about here. I really liked how their sports team, the Orioles, is orange. Is that weird to me? Is that weird to you? Are they one of like? Tell me another big sports franchise that is orange. Like tell me that. Orange? I don't really understand that. That more other sports franchises aren't orange and black. They're orange, black, and white, or that's exactly what the Orioles are. You walk around Camden Yards, and like you can't really imagine Orioles Park without any other colors other than orange, black, and white. So it was very cool to see that. It's just a small, not even it's just a small like little tidbit that like I can't think of another sports franchise that has orange as their main color, and that it's still being looking good and still has that not really tackiness to it, but a very cool like old timey like orange baseball, Orioles, Baltimore, Camden Yards sort of feel. The big building in the back, I think, is a little bit of an eyesore. Like it's cool. It's cool, and obviously you go under the big atrium underneath the whole stadium. There's a whole lot more to see. But no, seriously, like usually it's really cool to see like what's in the back of a lot of these baseball parks and baseball stadiums. And I think Pittsburgh has a really cool one looking over the water and then the rest of the city. I seriously think that like Camden Yards, where that big building is, or whatever it's called, it's kind of an eyesore. Like I kind of want to see more of the city. I kind of want to see more. I mean, obviously it's downtown, but like, come on, let's put it somewhere else so that we can see more of the city, right? Rather than just a big brick wall. Other than that, I think Camden Yards is a great sports stadium. It's very cool because I think Baltimore is very proud of their sports, and they're very proud of the Ravens. And I think they're very proud of the Orioles. I don't think that Baltimore sports and Baltimore fans are very stuck up. Just like the Dodgers and the Braves and things of that nature, big time rivalries here. But I think the Orioles and the Ravens, specifically the Orioles, because I'm talking about them, like stay in their own lane. They just do well, they play well, and they come out with a pretty big product for people to come and see. And I think the Orioles won 7-4 or something like that. The last thing that I'll say about Camden Yards and Oriole Park is that I felt like I wasn't at a baseball game because simply of the sounds of everything. Does that make sense? When I go to baseball games, and usually it's downtown Richmond, seeing the Richmond Flying Squirrels, obviously it's made for kids. It's super stimulating. A lot of music, a lot of stuff going on. There's people dancing. There's people going out on the field in between innings and dancing and playing songs, and they have fireworks at the end. It's very stimulating. It's something always to look at while you're at the ball field. It was interesting to be at Orioles Park here, and that none of that is really there. It's a lot of spectator fuel. It's very spectator fueled. There's a lot of things going on, like let's go O's, a couple of chants here and there, but I don't ever remember hearing like music or somebody talking or somebody saying something over the loudspeakers, or that please direct your attention towards the big screen, or please direct your attention towards the American flag. It was just that they would just start playing the national anthem. So I thought that was part of it was pretty interesting, that like I did hear the da-na-na-na, da-na-na-na, or like the different piano playings at Oriole Park. I remember hearing that at the Dodgers game. I remember hearing that at Wrigley Field, but I don't think I heard there wasn't a whole lot of sound, overall ambiance of sound going on or I mean, obviously people talking and drinking and having their fun here, but I did want to point that piece out. So I don't know if they could have like a piano guy in the back or something, but nonetheless, it was pretty interesting to see all that. The last thing, and I'll wrap it up here, I'm trying to make it under about 25 minutes here, is that Caitlin Clark was actually drafted to the Indiana Fever with #1 overall in the WNBA draft. And that her tickets, I'm sure, is going to go crazy for the Indiana Fever, but their jersey sales for Caitlin Clark sold out of all of the sizes within an hour. I think that's absurd. I think that's insane. People are realizing that basketball sometimes is just basketball. People are becoming more and more basketball fans, but people also want to support Caitlin Clark in her endeavors and her going into the WNBA. I think that's really cool, and I know for a fact for myself that I will be trying to get myself to like the Washington Mystics and seeing Caitlin Clark, play the Indiana Fever. I can't wait for something like that, seeing her, because I think that she's a phenom. She's a sports phenom going on in the women's basketball. A side note from that, WNBA is kind of the overarching umbrella message of this third part of this podcast, and that was Clayton Clark being drafted as 1A. But 1B here is the contracts that these WNBA players are getting, and it's circulating all over Instagram and Twitter and things of that nature, and people are realizing how much they are not paid. Over like a 4-year stretch, they may be paid about $300,000. And granted, with as many sports contracts that we've seen, people get like hundreds of millions of dollars over a span of a couple years. Now it's, people are looking towards the WNBA with a lot of eyes on the WNBA, like different contracts and how much money is dispersed. People are realizing, man, the WNBA doesn't make a whole lot of money. Or is it that the players don't make a whole lot of money? And that's what people want to focus on, is that the WNBA players are not making a whole lot of money. Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and Cameron Brink, their contracts are like nothing. They're not making a whole lot. They're making about $70,000 a year. I personally think that I would go crazy for $70,000 a year. But what do I know? I'm 2 years removed from college, working in a video production business. These people have been working their entire lives to get into a professional level of playing professional basketball, and they're getting paid a little bit less than like a project manager would, working from home. I think that is based on skill and experience and different things of that nature. But what's also focused on is the WNBA. Does it make money? A lot of people were like, well, it doesn't matter because of this, and that. No. It matters. It matters how much your company makes based on it. Your salary matter. Your salary is based on how much money your company makes. And if your company, i.e. the WNBA, isn't making a whole lot of money in the long term, then obviously it's very tough to pay their employees, pay their players a normal amount of money that you are used to seeing as the consumer, seeing all these massive, very public sports contracts and seeing like Shohei Ohtani and Nikola Jokic and things of that, and people of that nature, even in the same sport of basketball, people making millions of dollars, while WNBA players are making hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I'm sure from a perspective of a poor kid in Africa, $70,000 a year isn't that bad. But I know I can't really say that in a sort of sense, because I know there's people outside of the country looking in at a $70,000 a year, thinking like, man, if only I had that. And then now we have WNBA players saying, man, I think I need more. I think there's a little bit of a reality check and understanding of like where that business is at and the quality of play. And I'm trying to tiptoe around, like trying to say exactly what I want to say here. But what I really want to say here, and this will end off the podcast here, is that like with all of these big stars of women's college basketball now entering the WNBA, I think that will lead to more viewership, and that more people, just like Caitlin Clark, buying the Indiana Fever's jerseys, whatever that money translates into, definitely will be player salaries. So if you want to see that the WNBA be successful, then go buy the jerseys, go buy the tickets. Ticket sales, merchandise, concessions, and jersey sales is massive. It's basically how they make all their money. There's not a whole lot of money in these sponsorships. There's not a whole lot of money in these ad deals and things of that nature. Go buy the tickets. Go be a part of the WNBA if you're going to complain about their contracts. If you're going to go complain about how much they're making, how about you go contribute to how much they're making? I tell you this, the NBA has been making millions of dollars for tens of couple years, like since I mean skyrocketed in the 80s, right? That's how when the NBA got really big. But now we're in the modern era where people are making millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's only going up from here because they're selling out arenas, they're selling out jerseys, there's corporate sponsorships, there's TV deals, tons of things going on. And the WNBA doesn't even have half of any of those concepts, half of any of those categories. So if you want to see these contracts for the WNBA players to go up, then you have to contribute. And I'm telling you, I will go see a WNBA game. I'll go see the Washington Mystics play the Indiana Fever so I can go see Caitlin Clark play. So I think something like that would be really cool over the summer. And that's sort of the note that I want to leave it on, is that if you go support the things that you would like to see change, go support the WNBA if you'd like to go see the contracts change and the contract money go up. So that's where I kind of want to leave it at. Thank you so much for listening, watching, having fun with me. Almost 30 minutes just talking about different things, movies, sports, anything and everything. This is kind of exactly how I want my podcast to go, pivoting to different sort of concepts and categories. So I appreciate you guys going on this whirlwind of ride of talking about all kinds of crazy things. But nonetheless, I appreciate you guys, and I'll talk to you guys later in the next video or podcast episode. See ya.